Hello and welcome to Evaluate This. I'm Andrew Fryer, and in this short screencast I'm going to show you storage spaces in Windows Server 2012. I've got a virtual machine here, File Server 1, and I've already installed the file and storage role on here, as you can see. And because I have done that, I've got a File and Storage Services tab in Server Manager here, and here's my local server. Let's see what we've got set up. If I go to disks here, you can see that I've got a number of disks available to me, including 4 50 terabyte SCSI disks. I've also got this option storage pool. If I click on that, you can see that it says primordial. And all that really means is that I've got a disk with no volume on it kicking around on my virtual machine, ready to form the basis of a storage space. You can see those 4 unmarked disks available to me here as well. So if I right click on this and create a new storage pool, we can start to see how this all fits together. I'll call the storage pool just for the hell of it, and it's going to run on File Server 1. I then choose my disks. I'll have those 4 50 terabyte disks, and notice that I have the option to select one or more of them as a hot spare available in case things go wrong. Okay, that's just given me confirmation. I'm going to create a 200 terabyte storage pool based on these 4 disks. And I hit create. So we've created a storage pool. The next thing we need to do is create a virtual disk on top of that. I get another wizard here. Next, I select my storage pool that I've just created, give this a name, big virtual disk. And now I can choose how to use the disks in the storage pool I've just created. I could create a mirror, simple or parity layout. I'm going to go for parity. And I'm also going to go for thin provisioning. I've got 200 terabytes of capacity available to me, but with thin provisioning I can actually create something bigger than that, say 250 terabytes. Okay, that's worked. And now what I need to do is to put a volume on it, much in the same way as I would with any virtual disk or hard disk. So I'm on File Server 1, there's my disk 6, big virtual disk, 250 terabytes of capacity. Volume size, 250 terabytes, yes, I'll accept that. I'll put it on drive E. I'll call it big volume. And I have the option to enable data deduplication, which I'm not going to do. I'm saving that for another video in this series. I get my confirmation screen. Yep, that looks okay, so I'll hit create. And that's all finished. So I've now got a volume on there. And indeed, if I go to E drive now, there is my big volume, 249 terabytes free. Okay, so far so good. What I can now do is to create a share on that volume. I'm going to go for an SMB share for applications. Use my E drive that I've just created. Give it a name. I'm just going to call it data. You can see the relative path coming up there. Ignore all these options. I'm going to hit next. I'll leave the permissions as it is and hit next and create it. And that's done. To use this share, I've got another virtual machine called London SQL. And here we are on London SQL. I've got a database here called AdventureWorks. And with any database in SQL Server, you can detach the database from detach here Actually, I've got a script to do it here. I'll just execute that. And what that means now is that the AdventureWorks database is just sitting there as a pair of files that I can copy around. And if I now go into the default data directory for SQL Server, you can see the two files associated with the database here, AdventureWorks and AdventureWorks 1. I'll just take a copy of those and jump onto my new file share and copy them in here. I needed to do the detach because I couldn't do the copy while SQL Server has ownership of those two files. So having done that, you might think that what I'll be able to do now is go attach here, but unfortunately you can't browse to a file share using the wizard. So I've got to use a piece of T-SQL here. So really sorry about this. Here it is, really straightforward. Create a database, AdventureWorks, using these two files and just hit execute. And that's all there is to it. And if I refresh this now, you can see my AdventureWorks database is back, and if I look at its properties, we can see under Files here, just scroll to the right, that the data is indeed living on my new file server. So as in many of my previous demos, what I can do now is start this process up and execute a query against that data, and that's going to work just fine. This is using AdventureWorks database to run that. Now the interesting thing about all of this is that I've been using virtual machines. Here's my file server 1, and if I look at its settings here, you can see those hard disks. Now because I've used SCSI hard disks in my virtual machine, what I can do is actually remove one of them. And if I just click remove here, let's just take away that one and apply that. SCSI 1 has gone. If I go back to SQL Server over here, it doesn't seem to care that the database on which AdventureWorks is relying, that file share, is now missing one of the disks in its pool. So that's quite interesting. If I go back to my file server now and have a look at my storage pool here, we should in a while start to see some errors. I'll just hit the refresh button to force it. And there we are. You can see there's clearly a problem here. So the pool is still alive. Remember, we thin provisioned it anyway, but there is parity data on here so that we can take away one disk without ruining the whole environment. Now these disks aren't going to be terribly performant because they're virtual hard disks, but this does give you an idea of how storage spaces, storage pools, virtual disks, volumes and shares all come together in Server 2012 to provide the place where you can store any kind of file, including SQL Server databases. Now if you want to try this for yourself, you're going to need a copy of the evaluation edition of Windows Server 2012, which you can download from the link below. I've been Andrew Fryer. Thank you very much for listening.